Welcome to Birken Forest Monastery's live stream. I'm Ajahn Sona. Please feel free to submit questions in the question bar. And let's have the first one, Pia.
Ajahn, our first question today is from Anastasia from Toronto, Canada. Dear Ajahn, what did the Buddha say about sacrificing one's own life for a noble cause? Could the line about the mother protecting her child with her own life from the Metta Sutra be considered a sacrifice? Your wisdom is deeply appreciated.
Well, sacrifice is called for. There's two types of sacrificing your life. One is, being killed for a purpose to save others. But the other one is just the ordinary routine of daily life, where many people are constantly sacrificing their life. That is, a portion of their life, time in their life, for the sake of others. So a mother sacrifices her time and resources and other possibilities in life for the sake of their child. And this is the demands of motherhood. And that is a form of love. So one has rewards from that. By the way, it's not always a delight. It's a weary duty sometimes, but one does it out of love. So it's part of monastic life as well. You sacrifice your time for the Sangha, for other people sometimes. But there's other kind of connotations, like the sacrifice in war and so forth. The Buddha does not exalt going to war, sacrificing your life, but killing for the sake of others as well. So he eliminates that kind of sacrifice where you kill for the sake of others. The enlightened person does not kill either for one's own sake or for another's. But there is, but that implies that sometimes one might not survive because one refuses to kill for the sake of survival. There's a saying by Gandhi, I think he was in South Africa, and he gave a talk, and he said, there are several causes for which I would die, none for which I would kill. So in our processes in life, we sometimes will sacrifice all kinds of portions of our life, and sometimes let go of our very survival as well. For the sake of others. I would be very careful about that, though. In Christian martyrdom and so forth, it's not the spirit of Buddhism, this eagerness to sacrifice your life. You'll see this especially in the Abrahamic religions, an eagerness to sacrifice your life for religion or the community. I mean, literally hoping for a glorious demise. Buddhism is, very careful. It's a precious life. And if you happen to be in a stage where you're able to contemplate and move towards enlightenment, it's very important that you do not take your life lightly. It's an opportunity that will not always be there. So it's not, birth and death are more or less kind of trivial in terms of a series of rebirths. So birth and death happen without beginning, without conceivable beginning. And so it's not a matter of just staying alive, but it's a matter of opportunities in that long journey in samsara. If one has encountered the opportunity, then it is important that one is careful with one's life. and does not throw it away for trivial reasons. So your sacrifices should not be for trivial purposes. So the monastics, including the Buddha, he has left behind the family life, including the birth of his first child, and possibly administering a kingdom for a higher value, the spiritual value. And he is, why does he do that? Why shouldn't he sacrifice his life to his family and his kingdom and his people? Because it's not as high a value. You remember as well in the suttas that there's a number of so-called wise men that come to the birth of the bodhisattva and decide he has only two destinies in life. One is to be a world-ruling emperor or a philosophical, world-changing holy person, a Buddha. And so these things are more or less, the story is kind of weighing the two values of these two things. A world-ruling emperor that brings peace to the world. What an incredible, valuable thing. And most people would say that, well, that's the most valuable thing you could do. And some people are very disdainful of religious practices. But it's what that story is telling us is that the religious pursuit is of higher value and will affect a greater number of people, not just a mere few people in a certain time in history, but extends on in history and has higher consequences for people in this life and beyond. So be careful what you choose to sacrifice your life to. Some people sacrifice their life in the pursuit of money. Gandhi also compared himself to a businessman. He said, businessmen also get up at 4 a.m. and work all day, 20 hours a day in pursuit of things, but it's a different pursuit. So which one is the most valuable? The spiritual life, or from the Buddhist point of view, the spiritual life is the more valuable, and it is a sacrifice of many things, but it is the higher value for the sacrifice. Okay, let's go on to the next question.
Next question is from the live stream from No One Everyone in Iran. Dear Ajahn, the 5th and 6th jhanas are explicitly labeled infinitude of space and consciousness. To partly quote from MN 121, quote, mind takes pleasure and settles in its perception of the dimension of the infinitude of space and consciousness, end quote. Does this assert that space and consciousness are in fact infinite, or that the concept of infinity is not quite inconceivable? If so, what does infinity actually mean, and how does one perceive it? Infinity in the sense of all-encompassing and lacking no single possible event paradoxically becomes finite in its completeness, and one that keeps creating new phenomena that has not already been formed must either fully cease at some point to remain logically viable, or much like the previous situation, given infinite amount of time, all possible phenomena will have occurred at least once, leaving room for no more phenomena to arise. Thank you.
Yes. So let me just explain for the audience. The 5th and 6th jhanas, really, these are called arupa patanas, sort of foundation. They're very abstract meditation subjects. So the abstraction of space itself. Can you meditate on space itself or consciousness itself? These are very interesting to contemplate this abstraction. This is, I think, a new part in human thinking, a new aspect of human thinking. It comes up in Greek thinking and in Indian thinking, specifically Buddhist types of thinking. these are abstract concepts. They have no form or, solid elements to them. As far as saying that they're infinite, that's not necessarily the case. Infinite. When we say infinite space, what do we mean? It means that we don't conceive of a limit to it, but it doesn't mean that we conceive of anything that's unlimited. We just merely say that our minds can't find the limit of it. It's not a limited space. So this is actually some of the techniques for developing this very refined type of meditation, is to start with a limited space, a circle or a space in a room or something like that, and then expand it out until you can't see the boundaries of it. That doesn't mean what we formally mean by infinity now. That's more or less a mathematical concept, infinity. It just means that you're giving your mind an exercise in stretching it out until you can't see any boundaries or edges to things. It's an exercise with the mind, which results in a kind of a suspension of all kinds of discursive activities, logical activities, thought process, and so forth. So you're suspending your mind processes by doing this. Don't take it too literally, and don't take it as a mathematical idea. It is not the modern mathematical idea of infinity. I should say, by the way, that nobody knows what infinity is by definition. You couldn't know it. It's a useful thing. It's kind of like zero. Zero and infinity are useful concepts, but if anybody's really pressed on the matter to explain what they mean by infinity, the best they can say is not finite. So it's not finite, but what is it? It really means not something that has boundaries to it, but you're not saying that you actually understand what boundarylessness is. So this is the nature of this concept of infinity. It's not something. It's actually not something conceivable, but it's a useful mathematical concept, maybe a word that means the opposite of finite, but you can't bring it to mind. So you can't bring infinity to mind. When you read about these arupa jhanas, don't turn them into scientific or mathematical concepts. They're structures for inducing a kind of a state of mind. Very, very slippery, very subtle, very difficult. If people hear about this, they think, "Oh, I'm going to try for the infinity of space." I don't teach that. I mean, I don't teach the arupa jhanas in any meditation course I've ever given. I think that's very remote, unlikely. Some people claim it. They read the text and think, I've got the fourth jhana. I went into the fourth jhana. What do you think, Ajahn? I don't think you did. I don't think you went into this arupa jhana. Sorry. I just think you have no idea what you're talking about in terms of people claiming this. I just dismiss it as just naive ideas. It's a virtuoso kind of thing. At the time in the suttas, there are arahants, fully enlightened people who do not and cannot attain the arupa jhanas. This is an interesting sutta. The question comes up, do all arahants have access to the arupa jhanas? No. They have access to the four rupa or form jhanas. They're not in them all the time. They're not accessing them all the time. But some do not have access to these very subtle, abstract notions. On the other hand, there are people who indicated that some do have this. And also one could be not enlightened, but have access to it. But I would say that it's a very, very rare thing. So it's something that is not absolutely necessary to the path and can be set aside. Yeah, not to disturb one's sleep over the arupa jhanas. Okay, next question.
Next question from the live stream is from Rafe in Lima, Peru. Dear Ajahn, what would be the best way to manage a dear relative who, by compulsively lying, hurts and disappoints our children?
Well, it would be nice if we had a technique for managing liars and killers and thieves. We don't. There are all kinds of people out there that you can't manage because they can't manage themselves. The only way that they're ever going to understand things is usually they cross the boundaries of law. They alienate people around them. It comes back on them. They also lose the capacity to know what's true and what's not. So a liar has instant karma in some ways. They misrepresent the truth to themselves, and then therefore they have difficulty regaining what is true and what is false. So it's not we're not responsible for fixing other people or making them understand. There's no way we can control other people's minds. It's hard enough to control your own mind, even when you really want to. So more or less equanimity, understand its problem, and teach your children that lying, and apparently they seem to be aware that it's hurtful, that the person lies to them and it's hurtful. So you have to teach them as well that people do this and that you can't believe everything that everybody says, and that they must be aware that this is a human tendency, and that they need to work on it themselves, that they need to try to preserve the truth themselves, that they speak with truthful speech, and that's how you address your children, not the relative who lies all the time. It's beyond your capacity to force change in that. But your children, you can explain it to them and understand that it's a defect of personality, and that they should avoid it themselves. Yeah.
Next question is from Maglight in Berlin, Germany. Dear Ajahn, could you please speak about Yonis manasara in relation to right effort? Does it also mean following feelings, mental formations to their root causes? Applying this investigation, there comes a sensation of being sucked into a whirlpool. Could this be tanha? How do I not get sucked in?
Well, let me explain again for everybody listening. Yoniso manasara is a very important factor. There's this sutta where the Buddha says there are two factors which are critical to enlightenment. One is external, one is internal. The external factor is a wise friend, that is a kalyana mitta, meaning a beautiful friend, but the beautiful doesn't mean they have a nice complexion or something. It means they have spiritual accomplishments. So an external source of your movement towards enlightenment is a really good spiritual friend who gives you good advice and is an example. Internally, the critical faculty is yoniso manasara. Yoni, so literally yoni is the womb, and mana is the mind, and sikara, kara is same as karma, it's activities of the mind. Going to the source. This doesn't mean exploring the source of your problems. This does not mean that. It's a more or less the investigation of first principles. This is what it means. I mean, people distort this idea. They following the experiences, the flow of feelings and sensations and consciousness and all this. They think it's about observing it to the source, but it's not really that. Yoniso manasikara is going to the roots of the issue, which is suffering. The first noble truth is suffering. So Yoniso manasikara is, do you understand the nature of suffering? Yoniso manasikara, do you understand the cause of the suffering? Yoniso manasikara, do you understand the cessation of the suffering? Yoniso manasikara, do you understand the path leading to the end of suffering? And so what would that be constituted of? It would be an understanding of anicca, dukkha, anatta, the three characteristics: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and insubstantiality. The absence of an enduring self. So this is what yoniso manasikara, the mind doings, going to the first principles of the situation, the fundamental truths of the situation. It is not that necessarily this investigation of the roots of everything. It's the principles of the roots of things as regards suffering and its end. That's what it is. And now you will see whole schools talking in the Satipatthana mindfulness suttas as if it's something you simply observe, especially this third category called mindfulness of the mind, where you're simply observing the processes of the mind and not to waver in your simple observation of the processes of the mind, or the unwavering observation of processes of feelings. So Vedana Nupassana, mindfulness of feelings, or mindfulness of body, mindfulness of Dhamma, and you're as if the point of the exercise is to be a very clear observer of it. No. That's mere observation is not what is indicated. You have to go back to the sixth factor of the path, and it's called right effort. The observation is only the initial part. The effort is to particularly address negative, unwanted types of thinking and feeling processes that are available to change, and to institute and create wholesome mental states that either are there or not there, and to develop them. So it's very interactive, very interfering in the processes. That's the point of the exercise, not simply mere observation of the origins or sources of these things. It is to simply recognize and then change the processes. You're interfering and changing with them. You're not merely watching them. Sometimes this word vipassana is used as a simple watching technique. It's not. It means to see clearly with the and can't be abstracted from the rest of the Eightfold Path. It means to see clearly with the instructions in the other factors of the path, which are adamantly processes which are very proactive and interfering with these processes in a way leading to the end of suffering. So this can be easily misunderstood. There are technique schools, usually based in Abhidhamma ideas or commentarial or sub-commentarial ideas, where a person has run away with the idea, one small sliver of the path, and has it out of context. So if you don't include the whole of the Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths in the Eightfold Path, you do not have proper context. So Yoniso Manasikara, investigation going to the core issues, must be conceived only in the context of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. Next.
Next question from the live stream is from Mo Mehta in Kansas City, Missouri, United States. My partner describes me as not being able to see the glass half full, which keeps me from being happy. I have become a master of paying unwise attention to fault. I have no idea how to come out of this. It either feels fake or else it doesn't last long if I try. Can one start by incorporating that unwholesome talent into the path and develop dukkha sanya, like one can develop anatta sanya or anicca sanya? I've just never come across that term and would assume that all three characteristics are equally important to understand. Could it have the form of a meditation practice during daily activities like, okay, this is dukkha, etc.? Thank you, Longpor.
Yeah, so there's a proliferation of terms there. I want to sort through them. Unwise attention to the fault. So this, by the way, we were just talking about this term, Yoniso Manasikara. Unwise attention to the fault. The term used for that is Ayoniso Manasikara. Unwise attention to the fault. So one is looking at the fault without the full picture of the situation. The Buddha is very clear that you should look at the faults of existence, but it shouldn't produce in you a depression or anger. It should produce in you a disengagement, disenchantment is the term. There is a distaste arises. You lose your taste for certain things. Sometimes the word is translated as disgust for it, but disgust is a rather strong word in English. It's kind of nausea towards something, but a lack of you just losing your taste, distaste for. So if you look at these things, by the way, you mentioned, should I see dukkha sanya, meaning sanya means perception, dukkha means suffering, unsatisfactory. Perception of the unsatisfactory. Yes, you can see the unsatisfactory in things. Often it's the word, or something that can help you is this, what the word asubha, the non-beautiful in things. Things, when we're engaged with the world and we have cravings and desires, we project and distort. We see the superficial attractiveness of things. We see the superficial beauty, that's subha, beauty. And the Buddha says, well, you must reverse this, otherwise you will be constantly in debt, in a sense. You will always be trying to get the beautiful, and the beautiful is very slippery. It as you know in your own life, things that you craved as a child, certain toys and comic books and so forth, when you get older, they fall away. You're not interested anymore. And there's a kind of a hollow moment when it falls away and something hasn't replaced it. Usually with most people, they go through these stages of childhood, and the toy falls away, but they get a car instead, and that's their new toy. It's the growing-up toy. A lot of people do not grow beyond a certain level of emotional maturity, and they're infatuated with these so-called adult toys, adult pursuits. But those are more or less adolescent types of pursuits. And then there's another type of human that grows beyond that. And those kind of toys are no longer of interest to them. They might use a car and so forth, but they really can't get too excited that it's nice, it's so red, or that the hubcaps are so shiny. They see it as just like metal. Metal, it's red. Just drive me to the place I have to go, please. So this is an attitude you're cultivating. You shouldn't be this unwise attention to the fault. Why is it unwise, by the way? Are there no faults in the world? Yes, there are faults. Why is it unwise to see faults? Only if it's accompanied by this feeling of anger and aversion. So we can see the faults in ourselves or others, but it's not accompanied by anger or ill will. It should be accompanied by realizations of the disadvantages of things. It can be accompanied by the feeling of equanimity. You can even have, of course, goodwill. Many people and things and animals have pretty substantial defects in them, but people with loving kindness see the defects, see the lack, the defects in the person, but do not regard it with anger or aversion. A mother has to clean her child's diapers, which is not beautiful. The mother does it with loving kindness and isn't either disgusted or aversive to the child. They just do it. They understand the nature of the human body. They have to wipe the snot off the kid's face and wipe the face after they eat, because kids smear it all over their face. It's not pretty, but they do it with loving kindness, so they don't have they do it wisely. And so this is what is meant by this wisdom, engaging with wisdom versus lack of wisdom with the world and its faults and its difficulties. You bring the positive, the virtuous emotions of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, or equanimity to the situation rather than anger and aversion. Yeah.
Next question is from the live stream from Delini in Sri Lanka. Dear Ajahn, in the context of dependent origination, is attachment considered a fundamental nature of consciousness, similar to other mental states such as anger and greed? If attachment is not fundamental to consciousness, why does breaking it end the cycle of samsara? Can a consciousness not move on without this nature, or is it simply that this nature without attachment is nibbana?
Yeah, we have to understand this word. So attachment, sometimes translated as craving, desire. So there's two sources. When you look at the Four Noble Truths, the first is suffering, and then the second one is cause, the cause of suffering. And there's two causes given. Sometimes it's given as ignorance, that is, but the Pali word for ignorance is very similar to the word ignorance. It's avijja, which means lack of knowledge. Ignorance is not a terrible thing. It's just ig, meaning not, and then gnosis, knowledge, the absence of knowledge, without knowledge. And the Pali word is identical, but it's just in a different language form. By the way, the Pali and Latin and Greek are very related languages. They have common roots. They have a common ancestor. They're Indo-European languages. They just split off from each other and have variants. So sometimes it's merely just not knowing, and sometimes it's just a kind of acquisitiveness or a continuous thirst, which drives you on. This thirst is called sometimes becoming, or tanha, or just attachment. So the roots of attachment, your attachment is based on ignorance, and your ignorance manifests itself as attachment. So it goes back and forth like that. It is a fundamental of human consciousness, and it has to be uprooted. Ignorance is uprooted by the opposite, knowledge, and it's not merely book learning knowledge, but bone deep knowing, wisdom. In other words, wisdom is a better word than knowledge. Wisdom reduces or eliminates the attachments, which are the problems, the deep causes, the roots of suffering and the continuation in samsara. So that's how it works. Yeah.
Next question from the live stream is from Sumana. I'm reading through the Pali Canon at 1 or 2 suttas a day, trying to consider literal, moral, metaphorical, and transcendental meanings. This week I encountered a sutta that disturbs me. Would you please speak to the context and meaning of A.N. Book of Fours, Sutta 80:10, Cambodia? Grateful for your wisdom and this forum.
Well, do we have it? Let me read it. Do we have it? Oh, we don't have it. Okay, well, I'll basically paraphrase it. So it's in the Anguttara Nikaya, the group of 4. It's all right. I've got it in my head. So it's about women. You're not going to like this. So Ananda, the Buddha's attendant, comes to the Buddha and asked, why is it that women do not sit in the house of judgment? Why do they not participate in the business transactions? Why are they not sent? Why do they not go on missions to the Cambodias? This sutta is called the Cambodia Suta, by the way. So the Cambodias are Persians from the Persian Empire, and they're known. So notice that this is mentioned in the suttas. The Persians are known to the Buddha. The Persians are in what we would call Afghanistan now, and they have trade back and forth with by the way, there is no real India at the time. India is a more modern conception. There are these kingdoms scattered around. They sometimes refer to these 16 Janapadas, or kingdoms. There is no, strict unification of these things at the time, but there is this empire to the west, the Cambodias, the west. Why don't women go in journeys to the Cambodias? I guess trading journeys. And as the Buddha says, well, because they're envious, they're angry, and they're stingy as well, and not so smart either. Yeah, unintelligent. Now, so this is a very controversial thing. The Buddha is saying that women are this, but the Buddha also says women are capable of full enlightenment. So how do you reconcile that? So there's various attempts to understand this, but I think it's pretty straightforward that the women at the time, first of all, because women are deprived of these positions, this is the same thing. In all kinds of discrimination, people attribute the fact that a person is not in the highest place to some sort of defect of the person, but actually it's often social. So in the time of the Buddha, women were repressed and didn't get education, and they couldn't go anywhere, and they didn't know anything, and they were mistreated and things like that. So they were, because they were not found suitable for these things, they were therefore pointed out, oh, they're not suitable for these things because they're a discriminated minority. You know, they're mal-educated and so forth. So this is why they don't do these things. The entire society is structured like that. It's discriminatory. It's very, very discriminatory against women. But the Buddha didn't say it's their core nature. He says, well, it's the nature of all human beings to have all of those faults as well. All human beings, unless they're enlightened. So men are also angry, envious, stingy, ignorant, unintelligent. There's nothing new about this. Men and women, in general, and in the majority, vast majority, or that's the thing, that's how they're functioning. But it is possible to undo these things. You can become generous rather than stingy. You can become kindly rather than angry. You can gain knowledge rather than stay ignorant. And so, although men sit in these courts and they go on these journeys and everything, they plainly demonstrate all of these faults as well. So both men and women are riddled with these faults. And by the way, why? Because of the social situation, you know. They're in societies where the opposite is not cultivated. How would you cultivate these things? Well, you would go off and listen to Dhamma and transform your life and raise the whole possibility. And if you are raised up by these things, then you will also be able to contribute to others. The Buddha has an interesting saying. Somebody asked him, can a person who is ignorant help another person? He says, well, it's like a person who's stuck in the mud. They can't help another person out of the mud. It's not possible that a person who is mired in mud, sunk in the mud, can help another person out of the mud. You have to be out of the mud to help a person out of the mud. So one must raise oneself, educate oneself, increase one's generosity, kindness, and clarity in order to share this with others, to help others do this as well. But in general, the Buddha is quite radical in the first development of a woman's order who can leave the household life behind, and that's pretty radical. And the Buddha wasn't all that keen on the household life. Women's lot were raising kids and dealing with husbands and relatives, and it wasn't a good. It could be very hard, and so if they could get out, it would be a much lighter and freer life for women, as well as for men. So it's a very radical leaving behind all of the world system that almost all humans live in. The Buddha is radically saying, leave it behind, just walk away, go off and live the free life. What an idea! It's amazing. And it was the Buddha was, because of this society at the time, he was not sure that women would be allowed to do this. They would be prevented from doing this by husbands, by relatives. And they would, at the same time, even as nuns, the bhikkhunis, they would be discriminated against, and they would need some sort of protection as well from aggression and so forth. So he tried to design the bhikkhuni order to protect the nuns, to give them adequate resources in that society. Remember, these rules of conduct and so forth for monks and nuns are set up in relationship to the society that which was local to the North India at the time. And so this is the kind of larger context of these suttas. They shouldn't be taken just out of context. They should be in a larger context. Yeah. Okay, next.
Next question from the live stream is from Duk Duk. Good morning, Team Birken and Venerable Sona. The Christian philosopher Boethius of early medieval Europe made the argument that good fortune is ultimately deceptive, as it lulls its recipient into a false sense of comfort and security, whereas bad fortune is more revealing of the truths of how insecure reality can be. Is this in line with karma of Buddhism, or is karma more an impersonal force?
Yeah, one should, from a Buddhist point of view, cultivate equanimity in success and fortune, misfortune, so success and failure, good fortune and bad fortune. So if Boethius is talking about just whimsical bad fortune, a famine comes through, you're just trapped in a storm at sea and so forth. This is the way to look at this is with equanimity, fully knowing that sometimes it's good weather and sometimes it's bad weather. And you can't, you have to be a man for all seasons or a woman for all seasons. That's a beautiful, you do recall the Shakespeare, or was it a Shakespeare play, or what is it? A Man for All Seasons. Or it's a quote from Shakespeare. A man for all seasons, meaning that, there's summer, winter, spring, fall, these are different seasons. How are you in all of these situations? It means that are you a wise, capable human in all of these situations, good fortune and bad fortune, etc. Yeah.
Next question from the live stream is from Ingrid in San Diego, California, United States. Dearest Ajahn Sona, Jack Kornfield teaches 12 principles of forgiveness and how to open your heart. Did the Buddha create a teaching list for forgiveness?
There are many good ideas by the Buddha for forgiveness, of course. The main thing, you have to understand the essential principle is that when you have a grudge, you are the one that suffers, not your enemy. The enemy may be completely oblivious to this. When you are angry at somebody, have resentment, you cannot let it go. They did me wrong. That's your burden. And now you've already been mistreated. Why do you now mistreat yourself? Your enemy cannot harm you as much as your own mind if it doesn't let go of this. So forgiveness is just saying, I know you got mistreated, but the only way you can make this worse is by keep thinking about it, keep feeling sad about it, keep feeling angry about it. There is only one way out. It ends not by anger, it ends by non-anger. It ends by ill will ends only by goodwill or equanimity. This is the only way out. So if you can grasp the core principle of it, then there's all kinds of little techniques along the way. But if you can grasp the central principle of it, you're harming yourself by holding on to ill will and either personal sadness about something or hostility and anger about it. Both are negative experiences, and you shouldn't inflict it on yourself. So that means that you must give it away, let go of it, forgive, and forget.
Next question from the live stream is from Madison. Dear Ajahn, I have a lot of obstacles when practicing meditation due to anxiety and victimization. Please advise.
You have a lot of obstacles to meditation. Well, that's why you meditate. Exactly that. That's the point of the exercise, is because of the endless slings and arrows of outrageous fortune that I'm really into the Shakespeare today, aren't I? By the way, look up that A Man for All Seasons to see where that comes from. I'm talking to disembodied voices in the background here that are actually real people. Yeah, the anxiety and so forth that comes up in meditation is why we meditate, but we must be careful. There can be overwhelming stuff stored up in the mind that spills out. If you have no distractions and you're deprived of your normal resources for avoiding these things, then you should be careful if not to go on, say, a 10-day retreat without practice ahead of time or something like this, because I've given countless meditation retreats, countless people meditating in long-term situations. I've seen the mind can be overwhelmed by these kind of things, and we don't want that to happen. We want a nice gradual development, a healthy development, so that one isn't overwhelmed by these things, destabilized. So you must approach this gradually with support and good friends and good advice. By the way, good friends don't mean you're just your buddies. Means spiritual, the people who have clarity or who are wise and have your best interests in mind and have some knowledge about things. So you have support systems. Yeah. Okay.
Ajahn, A Man for All Seasons was a play written by Robert Bolt, and it's based on Thomas More.
Thomas More, yes. Who had to face religious persecution from the king because he was holding an ethical position, and the king didn't like the ethical position because the king wasn't ethical. This reminds me somewhat of the modern political situation. I shall not mention where or who. Anyway, let's go on.
Next question is from Anna in Weston-super-Mare, England. How does one stay detached from the constant annoyances from mundane people while continuing to care?
Yeah, this is important, is that caring, we must understand the word caring. If it means that you suffer along with others, and this is often the idea of compassion, is that you feel their suffering. I don't know how you feel it, but you feel it as distress in yourself, well, that others are suffering. But this is not, the Buddha doesn't advise that, because there's infinite amounts of suffering. It's always a present, and you should always then be suffering your whole life, and there's no possible way out of it, because you can't stop suffering until everybody stops suffering. And so, no, that's not the nature of caring. Caring is simply bringing your tools of expertise to the situation. That's how you care. So when you have a child, your tools of expertise is you know where to get the food, the kid doesn't. You know about cleaning their diapers. The kid doesn't know about that. You know about helping them learn to walk. You know about helping them learn to speak and so forth. That's what caring means. It's not an emotional thing. It's actually a set of skills that you have. So while this ignorance and lack of skill and suffering goes on around you, to care is simply to collect competence of skills and to apply those where and when you can. So like a doctor manifests their compassion or caring by good medical training. And that's what you want. You don't want the doctor suffering along with you. You want the doctor skillfully reading the examination results and giving you medicine for it. That's how they care, to show your care in expertise and knowledge, not by emotionally draining yourself pointlessly, because the amount of suffering and ignorance in the world is unlimited, and it's a bad strategy to think that it's a good, that a good person suffers along with them. No, a good person should not inflict suffering on oneself. There's enough suffering in the world. Don't add to it by inflicting suffering on yourself, but you can relieve some of the suffering by having skills. So that's what caring means. Yeah. Okay, one last question.
Ajahn, our final question today is from the live stream from Pranjal in New York City. My question is about concealed resentment. How does one uncover this in oneself? Once uncovered, how does one let it go? Any tips are appreciated. Thank you.
Well, yeah, one has to examine, am I functioning with a kind of a low-grade hostility and resentment to others? Resentment is just another form of aversion, or I don't like it. And so, first of all, that can be your normal condition of being. You might have, maybe it's your whole family is like simmering with resentment, and you were raised like that, and you think, well, that's just normal. That's not, no. So how do you find out whether it's there? By experiencing its absence. So what you have to do is go, to an extended loving kindness retreat or something where the words eventually melted away and you start to feel what it's like not to have resentment, not to have aversion. And it's such a beautiful experience. You get all excited about that. And that's the primary way to do it, is like to feel what it's like not to be in pain. If you're in pain all the time, you just think it's normal. But if somebody gives you some medicine and you feel, oh, this is what it feels like not to be in pain, you get very enthusiastic about that. So this is just hang around with people who are very positive, uplifting, friendly, that you have no resentment to, and who allow you to feel what that feels like to be free of that. And then you'll be strongly motivated to learn how to avoid this resentment, even though, there's all kinds of people who are annoying and provoking and so forth. But because the experience of non-resentment feels so good, then you will be highly motivated to just not attend unwisely to their faults. Okay, so that's it for today. And recently we had a visit from the Clear Mountain monks, and lots of people watched that. And so you will also, on their channel, eventually you will see another little process with myself and the Clear Mountain monks. So keep an eye out for them as well. Okay, that's it for today.